Welcome back to MVM. Today I am bringing you a Kickstarter preview for Code 3 from Black Key Games. Code 3 is every 80s buddy cop action movie you've seen boiled down into one game. And you're going to be playing through a lot of those 80s cop movie tropes, taking down mob bosses, hunting serial killers, and every cop's worst enemy, internal affairs. You're going to be dodging them throughout the course of the game. So this is a scenario-based game, and you're going to see a scenario set up here in front of me. When you take a scenario deck, you're going to follow the setup instructions included on that scenario card. Now, one of the first things you're going to do with every scenario is build a deck of radio call cards. There are a ton of generic radio calls that can go out through the course of the game, and some special radio calls that are linked to that campaign. And you're going to shuffle them all together into one deck. And the board is actually going to be seeded with some of these calls at the start of the game. So not only are you going to have to worry about following the steps of this campaign and trying to take down the enemy, you're also going to have to worry about solving these other 911 calls that are happening at the same time. In addition, you're going to get to choose a chief card. Now, there are a variety of these chief cards you can choose from, and each one has a set of special abilities linked to the chief die. Whenever you do investigations or police actions during the game, you're going to get to roll this and see if you have triggered any of the chief's special abilities. That chief is going to sit on top of the board along with a deck of training cards that can go into your player deck, and then some cards that you might want to get, including attaboys and officer commendations, and then some cards you don't want to get, including IA Heat from Internal Affairs, and potentially disciplines and interviews. And so you want to kind of avoid those investigations during the game. But each player is going to set up their own deck by choosing 2 detectives to play. Now, there are a large variety of detectives to choose from in this game. It's an incredibly diverse cast, including a canine unit even that you can choose. You're going to take all of the cards from 2 of those cops, and you're going to shuffle them together to make one deck. So here we'll set aside 1, 2, and then the rest you won't need. Every player is going to do this, shuffle up all their cards with 1 attaboy card and 1 IA Heat card. So you're actually going to start with these in your deck, kind of bogging it down. And gameplay is based on this deck, but you're also going to be able to take actions outside of that. So it's not like a standard deck builder at all. The board is going to be laid out like you see here. You're going to place these tiles out randomly, and everyone is going to start adjacent to the police station. The game does come with a 12-sided die that's going to help you choose some locations when it comes to placing, for example, these beat cops, and some of these radio calls have a random location assigned to them. But you're going to start the game like this. You're going to start with your deck, and you're going to draw 3 cards. Now, you're going to draw until you have chosen only officer cards. Any Internal Affairs cards or attaboy cards you have will be set aside, and that'll be explained here in a minute. Once you have your 3 cards, you're ready to start the game. Each one of these officer cards is going to have 2 stats, a patrol stat and an investigation stat that you're going to use to solve crimes out in the city. In addition, these cards might have a one-time use ability down at the bottom. But playing these cards, you're going to be able to do that on your turn. In addition, you're going to be able to take 3 different actions, and there's a list of those actions included in the game. You'll have a player aid that breaks them all down. The first action you can take is called a Code 2, and that is actually responding to a crime. You're going to be able to move your colored vehicle up to 2 spaces. Now, if you have coffee tokens, which you can achieve through the game, you can spend one of those coffee tokens and increase your movement. You're going to see that these tiles were placed with spaces that count as streets, and you're always going to be moving your cars around those streets. You can instead do a Code 3. If you have both a coffee and a donut, you can actually move your car anywhere on the board by turning those tokens in. So you can actually jump to right where you need to be, right when you need to be there. Just like in a classic movie, you're going to show up right at the nick of time. In addition, you can call for cover. There are these beat cops on the board that are neutral cops. You can call for cover, and you can have this beat cop come here and show up at your location. And when they do, they're going to actually assist you in completing that investigation or that card that's there. In addition, there's 2 things you can do that actually interact with the board. You can either investigate a crime. You're going to see that we put a crime scene token out here, and this was part of the setup of this scenario. This crime scene token sits here, and then we have these radio dispatches that you can respond to as well. And that's kind of the meat of the game, is trying to mitigate these, because every scenario is going to have a crime tracker. And this crime tracker is going to go up if you fail to complete some of these things in time. And you're going to place a cube on this card that's slowly going to track up until eventually you lose the entire game. If you don't want to do anything on your turn, you can just use an action to take a break, and you can take a donut, a coffee, or 2 motivation cubes. And we'll talk about these motivation cubes and what they do here in a second. But first I want to talk about the meat of the game, which is responding to those calls and how you would do that. You're going to be using the cards in your deck in order to respond. You're going to notice that every one of these cards, like I said, has a patrol value on it. That patrol value is how many dice you're going to get to roll when responding to one of these calls. So in this instance, I can play a couple different cards to get up, for example, to rolling 3 dice. And you're going to take 3 of those dice, and you're always going to roll the chief die as well. In addition, you're going to get 1 die for every patrol card that's adjacent, either a neutral card or another player's. So in this situation I've set up here, the red player is actually going to get the help of the 2 cards. They're going to draw 2 more. And you're going to roll all of these dice, and you're going to be looking for specific symbols. If you see here, the symbols on this dice are going to match symbols on the card. For this card, I need either 2 walkie-talkies and 2 dice that are rolled 5 or higher, or I need this gun symbol. So some of these cards actually have multiple win conditions. If you manage to defeat the card, you're going to get whatever the benefit is. If you fail, you're going to take whatever the failure effect is. Now, some of these benefits might have you add these attaboy cards into your deck, and some of the failures might have you adding those Internal Affairs heat cards into your deck. And these can kind of either help you or slow you down throughout the course of the game. You're going to be doing the same thing when you investigate crime scenes, but you're going to be doing it according to what is listed on these sheets. In addition, you can just search locations for evidence and witnesses. Every one of these cards also has that investigation value. When you play those cards, you're going to get to draw a number of cards from either the evidence deck or the witness deck. And you're going to see in this deck a variety of colored cards and some gray cards that are kind of neutral. The game comes with a player aid that shows you the exact breakdown, so you know the chances of getting the cards you need. But you're going to draw that number of cards, you're going to look through them, and you're going to try to pull out an evidence color that matches what your campaign is looking for. For example, this scenario wants me to find little old ladies. I'm trying to find these little old lady cards before the mafia comes after them. At the end of your turn, you're going to be taking off 1 time cube from every one of these cards you have not completed. These time cubes are called motivation, and if you do complete a card, you actually get to take all of these cubes and you get to place them in front of you, and these are called motivation cubes. These are things you can turn on your turn to work overtime and take extra action. You're going to look at how many motivation cubes you have, and you're going to spend a certain amount. Then you're going to take the patrol die, and you need to roll less than or equal to the number of cubes you bid. If you do roll less, then you're going to get that extra action. Now you can do this multiple times and kind of press your luck. Eventually you're going to get to a point where you've only got a few cubes left. This is a 6-sided die, so you're really pressing your luck and taking a chance here. For every one of these cards that's failed, for example, if you take off all of the cubes, or if you take off the last cube and this card is failed, you're going to place it in the discard pile, and you're going to take up that time tracker. And remember, like I said, once you get to the end of that crime track, you lose. Another way you can lose is if this entire deck of 911 call cards is empty, because at the end of your turn, you're going to pull out 2 and you're going to place them on the board. And they're going to come out in specific locations listed on each card. Sometimes they're going to have you roll a die to be put out somewhere random. When you place them out, you're going to restock them with new cubes, and then it's going to be the next player's turn. You're going to redraw back up to your hand of 3 cards. If you ever have 2 IA cards come up in the same hand, you now have to do an interview. And so you really want to get rid of these cards out of your deck. These cards are going to be set aside. You're going to take an Internal Affairs interview card and put it in front of you. Now at the start of your next turn, you're going to have to tackle this. You're going to take all 6 patrol dice and you're going to roll them. And hopefully you're going to hit the target number listed on that card. If you manage to complete it, it's gone out of your deck and you can go on playing the game. If you don't complete it, you have 2 options. These options are to have other players vouch for you. They can take a heat card from the supply and put it into their deck, and you can take any one of those patrol dice and set it to any particular side. In addition, you can take a discipline card from your supervisor. The discipline card goes into your deck, and you're going to re-roll all of the dice and hope you hit. And you can do this multiple times. On the flip side, if you manage to draw 2 attaboy cards, you're going to get a commendation added into your deck instead. And these commendations are actually going to give you better abilities and kind of boost your abilities over the course of the game. In addition, if you completed a card, you might be getting tokens or rewards in the form of training. And when you do, you get to choose a training card and you get to take that trading card and put that in your deck as well. So your deck is going to grow and change over the course of the game, but unlike a lot of deck builders, you never have a discard pile. At the end of your turn, you're going to take all the cards that compromise your deck, you're going to shuffle them all back together, and you're going to draw 3 cards. So it's possible you could draw the exact same hand of 3 cards again. But once you've done that, you're going to move on to the next player's turn. While you're completing all those things on the board, you're also going to be doing whatever the scenario card says. And this scenario card is going to have you pass through multiple pages of narrative. There's going to be text. There's going to be some bonus objectives. I don't want to spoil a lot of what happens in the actual case. I want you to discover that on your own. But the win conditions and loss conditions are hidden within this deck. So the only way to win is to get through all these cards until you reach a card that says you've done it, you've won the game. You can lose still, however, like I said, by going through that entire deck, running out of time, or by failing according to a failure on this scenario. And there are multiple scenarios that come in the core set. Each one of them is going to play very differently. So that is Code 3. It is on Kickstarter right now, so take a look at their Kickstarter page and see the final components. We are using a Kickstarter prototype here, although this does look pretty close to being final. They're going to have everything on their Kickstarter page, including some of the stretch goals, maybe some new cases they might include, and everything else. So come back here, leave some comments, ask questions, and as always, thank you for watching, subscribing, and following to us here at MVM, and I will see you next time.